Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Kaiketsu Yancha Maru 2, Karakuri Land. This is the true sequel to Kid Niki, but unfortunately was never brought over from Japan to North America. The game has the main character, I'm just going to call him Kid Niki for the sake of this playthrough, as he's traveling through a kind of demonic, overtaken amusement park, trying to save the princess who ended up wandering off. Now, I'm playing the translated ROM version of the game, which gives you a little bit of the story as we start it up. So here we go with Kaiketsu Yancha Maru 2. Once we get to the main title screen, we get to see our main character in the foreground. I really like this shot, and just seeing the building, that evil smile that the main building has is just kind of intimidating. When you start the game though, you can actually select from one of the first 3 levels, and I'm going to be going through and completing all the levels before going to the final stage. When you jump into the gameplay, it's similar in a lot of ways to Kid Niki 1, however you can see the graphics have definitely been changed up. Kid Niki is a little bit smaller on the screen, and movement in general, while still relatively slow-paced, has been improved a bit. The characters and enemies come at you a little bit quicker in Kid Niki 2. You can also get some upgrades to help you speed up a little bit, and some other items that are scattered throughout the different various levels. I love the animation at it where you can actually duck as Kid Niki and crawl through some tight areas. Just the little animation of his feet moving really quickly is kind of fun to watch. Most enemies in the game are going to be killed in a single hit, and unlike the first game, you have multiple hits at your disposal to help you out. At the bottom of the screen you can see how many lives you currently have left, the score, and how much life you have left. Over to the far right here, we battle the first boss of the game. We have to wait a few seconds for it to kind of open up and start attacking us, and we're going to jump up and directly attack the top of it. It'll fire out projectiles, and we're going to have to do our best to try to jump over them and avoid them as they're trying to home in on us. After a few seconds, the boss will charge forward. This usually ends up getting me hit at least once, but I'm able to then jump up and continue to hit the boss, and after only a few hits, he ends up dropping. The second level is entitled Strange Land, and it is strange indeed. Not only do you have this Christmas tree set up with Christmas balls on it, you also have some really weird food-based enemies, some candy-based enemies, hamburgers, and evil french fries. The creativity is great in this level, and I love going through this stage in particular. Most enemies are going to try to either run directly into you, jump on top of you, and thankfully Kid Niki's range of his weapon is so vast, you're able to hit enemies relatively easily. I don't find myself missing attacks at key moments. Usually if I'm aiming towards an enemy, I'm able to hit it. And that includes enemies that are up in the air. As they're diving down towards me, I can do a jump up into the air in order to knock them away. The sandal upgrades are essential to help you move faster. The faster you're moving, it really does help you out. Be sure to duck underneath these crushers so they don't end up hitting you and you end up losing some health. On the conveyor belt here, you have to wait for the fire to kind of retract inside the machine so that you can easily get past it. There will be some birds that are trying to fly overhead and drop eggs on you. Try to get past them and you'll make it to the boss. Here, just attack the lantern hanging off the end of the steam machine here, jumping up, and at the whole time you're going to be avoiding these globs that fall down from the top and bounce along the conveyor belt trying to come towards you. After only a handful of hits, the boss is defeated, and we move on to the next level. We're now going to backtrack though all the way back to where the beginning of this was and go to the level on the far right side. As you can see, this level is a train-themed stage. The issue here is the quarters that you're moving through is a little bit smaller and a little bit tighter, so you'll have to be a little bit more careful when it comes to what jumps and the movement you're going through, though most enemies will still come and run just directly into you. Be careful of the guys with the spears below you. They're going to try to jump up and poke you from the bottom, but if you hang on the top portion, you'll have no issue. And the same goes even with the flying enemies coming up, as they do an arcing pattern downwards, and they'll just fly right off screen a lot of times and completely bypass you. If you take the upper path here, you can get to a little bonus area where you can collect some other power-ups, including the sandals and a few other things as well. Some of the items, like normal, will be used for point scores, but there's also a few other things that you can grab. During this segment here, you're going to have to attack the top portion of some of the rows of boxes so that they'll actually be destroyed so that you can continue along your way. At the end, you'll have this big guy on the edge throwing out projectiles at you in a diagonal downwards pattern. But as you can see, you can easily jump into the air and just hit left and right while you're in the air to control your movement and be able to deliver a hit and get far enough away from his projectiles so that you can avoid taking damage. Next up is the horror-themed level, and this is another one of the really cool ones. Not only do you have typical horror-themed creatures, you'll also have some Japanese mythology creatures thrown in as well, like the jumping umbrellas with the eyeballs and some other stuff that you've seen, and a lot of other Japanese-style platformers that include horror levels. I remember the first time I saw a lot of the creatures like that was in Super Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins for Game Boy. When you make it over this section, I'm going to grab the sandals to help me make these jumps a little bit easier. As I have more speed, it's easier to make it across the very tight platforms. Watch out for these bigger creatures and just deliver a hit when you get close. They'll try to run away and fire out at you, but if you're quick, you'll still be able to hit them, as they'll usually run into a wall. As you continue on, though, you're going to come to this giant tree that will start dropping skulls down that will bounce back and forth. Every so often, the eyes of the tree will appear, and you'll be able to do a jump up and attack in order to hit the tree, and after only a couple of hits, they'll be defeated, and we move on to the next stage. We're going to be traveling up now on the map in order to head to the Underworld stage. Watch out for a few boulders throughout the stage. You can jump over them usually, because there's just enough room above your head in order to make a nice jump over them, and that little bit of floating you do as Kid Niki in the air will be enough in order to get past them. This is the toughest part of the stage right here, where you have the rotating ball platforms, and you'll have to stand on them just long enough. As they come around, you'll be able to jump to the next ones to the right. Attack consistently through this area, as the jellyfish enemies crawling on both the ceiling and the ones on the ground will try to run at you. Crawl underneath the next upcoming enemies, as you'll be able to easily dodge the projectiles they're dropping down, as you'll just run underneath of them. When you make it over to this big open area, go around the waterfall for a few seconds before a giant jellyfish appears in the air. Attack it immediately as it spawns. Watch out for the giant hoop projectile that it shoots out and it bounces around, and just keep jumping up and delivering the attacks until the boss is taken care of, and we're moving on to another stage. Next up is the Cliff Mountain themed stage. Start off by immediately attacking the bells in the air, because you'll be able to get your power up for your sandals that will definitely help you out here, because you have to make some pretty lengthy jumps. Just avoid the little chicks popping out of the eggs. You can just do a big jump over them, and you should be able to land safely on the platform as long as you picked up the speed upgrade. Next up, you'll have some up and down moving platforms. Just wait for the right timing in order to easily go past them. Over here, a couple of platforms will come raining down like a waterfall from the sky. You can easily jump across them to the far right. Once over here, you'll have a guy spinning a weapon and trying to throw it at you, and you can easily hit him. Now here's the tricky part of the stage, where you'll have stars falling down from the top of the screen, and you have to jump along them in order to safely make it across the gaps. There's a couple of tiny platforms along the way as well to help out. And you'll also have these swaying platforms moving back and forth. At the very end of the area, make a big jump over the wall, and then a small jump over this small pit, and then it's time for the boss fight. A giant egg and a chicken inside, like the enemies we dealt with earlier. Stand right in front of it and just keep attacking up in the air over and over and over again. After a few attacks, it will break the shell and then start flying around itself. As it's moving back and forth, do the crawl move underneath of it to let it go over your head, and then pop up to hit it a couple of times in the back. After it's taken care of, we move on to the maze level. Being a maze-themed level, you can expect some different kind of maze-like platforms and patterns to go through, but it's not really like a typical NES maze where you have to go certain ways or try to get lost. You just have to work your way through. There's no way to really get stuck, or you won't end up backtracking at any point during the level. Here we have to wait for these things to kind of go around. As you can see, they follow the wall of whatever they're attached to, like the classic fireballs from the Mario games. These big guys here, you just wait for them to pop up and try to swing at you, and you'll be able to hit them. And then move across, you can actually just jump on the small platforms on the bottom here. You don't even have to bother with the giant waterfall raining down all the other platforms. Continue making your way through the maze, sometimes attacking downwards as you drop down in order to land on top of an enemy using your weapon. Over here is the next boss. Attack it and it'll start moving and teleporting around the room. Whenever it reappears, just quickly get up to it and deliver a hit. It'll start spinning and then teleport to another portion. Just keep following and attacking, and after only a couple of hits, well, another boss is down. Next up is the final level of the game, Happyland. There's nothing really too happy about Happyland, as it's mostly a boss rush against some interesting bosses, including a rematch against the big-headed boss from Kid Niki 1 that used to try to blow you away. Just jump up and deliver attacks to him, watching out for the areas he's trying to push you away in order to take him out. In between each of the bosses, you're going to have a small room, usually containing a few possible bells to get some items, but we're going to ignore them for the most part and just keep on trekking to the next boss. Here you're going to fight this ninja girl. Deliver an attack and her head will get bigger. Deliver a couple of more attacks and her head will get even bigger as she jumps around the room trying to throw the shurikens at you. Just keep delivering hits and she should go down in no time. Now this is one of the tougher bosses during the boss rushes. You have all these kind of like statues on top that sometimes will end up dropping down and then run across the bottom. It can be a little bit tricky to actually deliver a hit and then jump out of the way, especially if one ends up falling right next to you or right on top of where you're currently standing. But just like all the bosses in the game, it's only a handful of hits that you actually need to deliver. Now for the next boss, jump on the bottom platform here and deliver a hit. Jump up the platforms and hug the right side here as you'll be able to easily hit the boss multiple times before you'll have to jump over to the left and jump to the center platform. Just be careful, of course, that you don't accidentally fall off the platform into the pit down below. Next up is this really big guy who has like kind of an electrical ball on the track. It'll move along and he'll also drop fireballs down directly on you. So stay a little bit to the left or right of him, jump over the electrical ball easily, and attack upwards. Above you, you're going to see all the regular normal ninjas being kind of transformed and combined into the weird creatures that we've been battling throughout the game. So that's kind of a nice touch to see how all the enemies were created. But it's time for the boss, the final boss. All you have to do is attack the fake versions of the princess. As you can see, the fake ones are kind of orange, where the real one is purple. There's a couple of projectiles the boss will fire out, but just keep attacking those clones of the princess, and the boss will go down easily, and you can enjoy the ending. Unfortunately, due to the wrong translation, the ending here isn't the best translate. It's a little bit glitchy, but there you go. That's the ending to Kid Niki 2. So with that, though, that's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving a thumbs up or commenting down below. If you enjoyed this playthrough of the Japanese Kid Niki 2, of course check out my playthrough of Kid Niki 1 I did a few weeks ago here on the channel. I want to give a huge special thank you to all the members of my Patreon. Without your guys' support, and I'm serious, without your support, I won't be able to keep doing what I'm doing, and you can help out the channel as well if you like my playthroughs or my reviews or any of the content that I provide. Just as little as $1 a month, just $1 a month can keep this channel going. But with that though, that's going to wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.